Quiet on set. And action.
What's good, y'all? Welcome back to the lab. For today's video, I had the opportunity of getting interviewed by KTVU Channel 2 News about my Life Oakland series and talking about some of the stuff I do with iPhone. The reason why I'm making this video is because I had a short 4-minute segment and I had a lot of ideas that I wanted to get across, but didn't really have the time to do, and I was a little nervous too. I'm more of a, I don't know if you really know me, I'm more of a storyteller through my videos, not through actually being live. So I'm going to go through the actual segment and then I'm going to break it up into pieces and expand more on some of the things I wanted to talk about. But if this is something you're interested in, then please keep watching.
All right, switching gears here. For many filmmakers, inspiration comes from many different places, and that includes where many of these storytellers grew up.
My family always told me, no matter how far I go in life, never forget where you came from.
A kid from Oakland.
Growing up in Oakland.
Oakland.
All my life, born and raised right here.
In Oakland, California. Born and raised.
I came from a war zone, but went to another war zone in Oakland.
Joining us now to talk about his YouTube series, My Life Oakland, is filmmaker Andy To, who, if you haven't seen his work, it's really incredible work, Andy. Thank you for joining us right here on Mornings on 2.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Good morning.
Good morning to you. One of the things that immediately caught me about your filmmaking, Andy, is that most of the time you're just using an iPhone, just a regular iPhone that a lot of people already have, to create these beautiful films. So whenever you're out, basically, if you have your phone with you, you have a very modern piece of equipment, don't you? Yeah.
The iPhone is probably one of the fastest cameras I have, just coming up. I like how they put storyteller at the bottom. That's like, yeah, that's what's up. Shout out to whoever worked that. Coming out the pocket doesn't really take too long to set up, and is one of my favorite devices to shoot with.
Now you're living in New York City, but you grew up in East Oakland. When did you start getting involved in photography, and when did you know that this would be something that might propel you to move forward?
Yeah, well, first off, I was raised by my grandparents. They pretty much always had cameras on hand, whether it's taking like Polaroids or just videos on the side, and not really doing it professionally. And then I kind of got into some trouble growing up and dropped out of school, but then eventually re-enrolled myself into Media Academy, where My Life Oakland sort of takes place when I'm getting my life back together. And I enrolled myself into Media Academy, where I was pretty much exposed to film equipment, video production, audio equipment, and then our job was to tell stories every Friday. And I just took the opportunity to make something out of nothing. And that sort of kind of ties into my upbringing. It just not having the most resources, but just using what I had to make something beautiful, especially going to Fremont High, where, to be honest, around us, it's not the most beautiful place. But I sort of just used that video equipment to tell the story. And it's pretty much transcended my life into living here in New York City now, working with companies like Apple. And that video, My Life Oakland, is a big collaboration with Apple. So they were able to pretty much help me tell my story. And yeah, it's changed my life.
Yeah, Andy, I want to.
So a big reason why I started My Life Oakland was to tell the story of not only my own story, but to shed a light on the story of my friends, people I grew up with who are going through like similar experiences. Because when you grow up in the town, you hear about these stories of like, a lot of domestic abuse, drugs, violence, gun shootings, and I wanted to shed a positive light on the town. And when you do a quick YouTube search at Oakland, the first 10 things aren't going to be the most positive things, but if you stumble across my video or my work, and the way that I represent Oakland is to put it in a positive light, And I just wanted to use my story as a vessel to inspire, hopefully inspire the youth who probably went through the same things I did. My family, didn't have the most money. We were on Section 8, getting food stamps. I remember even lining up for the food bank, and like some of my family members, like in and out of jail. And my household wasn't your typical picture of a family, but I just loved them for who they were. I embraced them, and I just accepted that these were the cards that I was dealt. So I'm just gonna, make my moves and do what I need to do to get to where I need to get.
Apple liked your stuff so much that they are using your work as an example of what's possible with the iPhone. You talked about telling stories. I think all of us have a story. Do you encourage people to just document things that are happening in their life, no matter where they're growing up?
Me personally, coming from the inner city, it was really hard to tell my story in the beginning because I was, I wasn't proud. I wasn't too proud to tell my story because I've always kind of felt ashamed in a way. But it wasn't until I got over that and got comfortable with my story, embraced it, embraced being from Oakland, embraced going through the struggle, is pretty much during that, like when that happened, my storytelling just skyrocketed, and I didn't care what people thought of me anymore, and I just told stories as authentic as possible, and I still do that to this day. Even when I go out and travel, it's inspired me to continue creating, continue telling stories, and telling stories for other people who can't speak for themselves.
Andy, I'm a photographer too. I was looking online. I saw you teach a class. For the low fee of $99, you can get instruction from Andy To, award-winning filmmaker. What kind of things can we learn from your class? What kind of things do you teach people? What's the number one thing, if I had to pin you down to one thing, that a photographer needs to know?
You could pretty much tell a story with your mobile device. You don't need the fanciest cameras. You don't need like super expensive equipment. Just use your phone. One point here that I missed, and I'm kind of upset with myself about because we're short on time, was that I wanted to mention that yes, I do have an online course, but I take pride in giving back to my community. That's why on my IG stories, I provide free lessons. On my IGTV, especially my YouTube. My YouTube is like free game for everybody. I just always try to put myself in the mindset of my younger self. When I was a teenager, I didn't have access to a bunch of money. $100 for my course is a lot of money, so just take advantage of the free game that people give on YouTube. You can literally look anything up that you want to learn about, and it just takes time. That's really the biggest thing. It takes time, and it takes a lot of patience. But my course is there if you want to invest the money into it.
All right, and one last thing before I let you go. What is next for you? Are you making another film? Are you involved in working with Apple? What are you doing in New York City?
Working with Apple currently, and once I could make my way back to Oakland, my Life Oakland III will be dropping, and I'm currently working my way to go to graduate school. I want to get my master's in cinema, and I want to take this movie making career of mine to the next level.
Andy To, don't forget about us when you become the big Hollywood director. Thank you for coming on Mornings on 2.
Thanks for having me. All right, this pretty much wraps up the video. I wanted to give a huge shout out to YouTube for giving me this platform to share my story with you guys, the community. I want to give a huge shout out to you guys for supporting my work, supporting my journey along the way. And I also wanted to give a shout out to Aaron and Sal over at KTVU. Thank you guys, and I'll see you guys in the next video.